really, my question is aimed at or towards Dr. Frank. Now, I've got here that Dr. Frank, you're a neurobiologist, is that right?
Well, I am a journalist. I was a neurobiologist until 1996, which is about a lifetime ago. But yes.
Okay. The reason that I'm asking that, my question is more towards psychology, and Sky's the Limit has kind of stolen my thunder very slightly. That's the previous guy who was talking to you on the floor there. My question is, do you think there's a failure in the atheist community to use the science of psychology to provide an explanation to some of the psychological techniques utilized by religion to trap and control its followers?
Good question. I mean, what we've heard here is that there is a great emphasis on logical argument, and that doesn't always work. So maybe, yeah, using psychological methods or explaining about the community effect and so on might work somehow better. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not a sort of a proselytizing atheist, so maybe I should send the question to one of you two. Could you do better using psychology or explaining psychological mechanisms?
Well, I hate to see the logical argument part and the scientific evidence part belittled, and I think that's also important. You know, if the science didn't hold together, I'd be leaving evolutionary biology.
Sure.
But that's the final stages. That's where you're pretty firmly grounded. And I think the caller is exactly right, that it's things like psychology that will get you to the point where you can start asking good questions. Mm-hmm. And how we do that, I don't know. You know, one of the things we always advocate is I would love to see more critical thinking taught in grade school and with young kids. You know, we ought to be hitting kids at the age of 5 or 6 or 7 with critical thinking skills and making them evaluate ideas and get excited about stuff. And it turns out that's hard to do. Mm-hmm. You know, how do we do that? And I would say we have to turn to the psychologist to find out how.
But I got another suggestion.
Okay.
Have you noticed how many illusionists, professional performing illusionists, have come out to debunk faith healers and other religionists of various sorts? I mean, of course, James Randi and Penn and Teller. And who is the guy here locally that his name begins with a D?
Darren Brown.
There we go, Darren Brown. So we have these people that are coming out and showing what a scam all of this is. And some people actually get offended at the fact that they've been lied to. You know, only some, I'm sorry to say.
Mm-hmm.
Some will be angry that you've told them the truth. I've had many angry at me. Right. When they concede that I've convinced them of something because it causes them pain to lose the belief.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about teaching kids. I think something very, very valuable would be to have, you know, teaching on what do we know about human nature? What do we know about how our brains work? What do we know about how our psychology works? You know, all this knowledge that's coming out of behavioral economics and, you know, behavioral sciences, because I think that would appeal to kids a lot more than, you know, some of the basic stuff about biology. But you know, let's teach them who they are.
Yeah.
And how they can see through, you know, others and themselves.
Yeah, there's a talk I give, which is not the one I gave this weekend, but I also talk about this phenomenon that people have this impression that their brains are perfect recorders, that they flawlessly record events around them, that there's no interpretation going on, there's data pouring into your head, and what you see is what is really true. And the truth of neuroscience says that no, that's not the case. What your brains are imperfect modelers of the world around us, that you can be easily fooled. And this is also the message of people like James Randi, is that it's really easy to fool people who think that their brains are so rational and logical. And so part of the message is also to get across the idea that, yeah, your brain isn't that good. Your brain is a pretty crappy organ. And that what you need is crutches to help you understand that there are cognitive tools we use and that you have to learn these in order to be able to better process the world around you and not be tricked by people like that wicked James Randi. Or your local preacher.
We have another interested member of the audience. Please introduce yourself to the microphone.
Hi, my name is Laurie Brown, and I'm actually, my YouTube channel is named Aisha's Body. My question is directed to Dr. Frank.
I think you need to get quite that close. I think you can
Okay.
Let her be that close, because then she's on camera. She's
Oh,
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
There you
be
go.
famous.
The camera's behind you, by the way.
It's,
And the microphone's over here. So you just have to do that.
Yeah, look at these guys over there. And you'll be perfect.
Are you going to introduce a new question, or are you going to come back on that one?
I mean,
Who's running the
I-
show?
Yeah, get that.
It's like that look from Austria.
First of all, I'm absolutely thrilled that a neurobiologist is on the show, and I'm a panelist, and as well as a journalist. And I'd like to know what's known at this point regarding the human, the religious impulse, the impulse to worship, whether it's a god or your favorite teacher, or what. And then the second part will be, what is known about the religious experience, spiritual experiences? Because it seems to me this has to be some kind of psychological phenomenon that could be pinned down and explained.
Sure. I mean, there are tons of study of, say, religious experiences. You can take nuns who are praying and achieving some kind of unity with their God, and you can put them in a brain scanner and see what closes down, basically. And you can take monks who are praying, and you can look at people with temporal lobe epilepsy that will actually, when they have seizures, think that they are in contact with God, or they're seeing angels. You can even go to Canada to visit Dr. Persinger, who has built the God helmet that will sort of make you a temporal lobe epileptic for a while, and you can have strange experiences of someone else in the dark room that you're sitting in. So quite a bit is known about the religious experience and how it comes about. But when you say the impulse to worship, I don't know if that's a thing we can look into as one thing. I'm not sure that is one thing. But talking about the religious impulse, or why we do have religion. I mean, there is not one truth about that. There are theories about it. Maybe the ability to have religion and to create religions and beliefs in weird stuff was something that gave coherence to the groups that, original groups of hominids or human beings that lived thousands of years ago. And so it was a selective advantage. There are other theories that will say it's just a side effect. Our brains are evolved in an environment of sociality and understanding other people, reading other minds. So it's just very, very natural for us to say yes to ideas about, gods that are reading our minds and gods that have, plans for us and care about us and so on. So there's a ton of literature out there. Pascal Boyer is a guy that I would recommend. He's at, I think, Washington University. WashU, yeah.
Mhm.
Still,
Yeah.
he's an anthropologist. He's written extensively about this. Religion Explained is a really good book. And there are tons of others. So, yeah, it's not like everything is explained, but there are theories, and there are, there's good evidence for what religious experience is, at least.
Regarding the religious impulse, the impulse to worship, I don't recall exactly. It was a group of scientists that were being interviewed on YouTube, and one of them suggested that it might be possible that human beings have an impulse to hero worship or worship non-existent entities because we're pack animals, basically, and the alphas and the omegas, and we have a tendency to worship the alphas, whoever they might be. I don't know if you.
I'm sure that there's a bunch of psychological literature on that, because it's clearly a human tendency. yes, we go out there and we find heroes, or it's like pushing your own pleasure buttons in a way. It's so nice to have somebody to look up to. And it probably also works as an advantage in group living, I would imagine. What would the evolutionary biologists say to that?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Yeah, just because, you know,
But that's why I sent it on.
well, because you know, I've got. When you mentioned this question, I had this clear counterexample in my head, and that is, scientists get training in graduate school, and anybody who's gone through graduate school knows that this is a hypercritical environment, and we don't have heroes. I mean, we can have people we admire their work, and we think they're really great, but we take great delight in ripping them apart. And so, in my upbringing and my education, I completely missed this phenomenon. I don't have anybody I worship. I have people I think are worth criticizing. That's kind of it. So I don't know if I'd call it a human impulse. I think it's a cultural impulse that we grow up in environments where we are indoctrinated to believe in heroes. But it doesn't have to be the way. We could do it other ways.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you, if you don't mind, I don't mean to be rude, could you keep it fairly brief, because I've got three callers lined up, and we've only got about half an hour left.
My take on this is just that humans don't crave for worshipping, they just crave for happiness, and when they can't achieve their happiness through their means, because you are unable to provide food for the family, or you can't afford television, then you turn immediately to something, like if someone tells you, no, don't worry about this, you can be happy in the afterlife, if you just believe on this, then you suddenly fulfill your needs for happiness through that means, because you are like, okay, I will just believe on this, and that will give me happiness at some point in the future.
Right.
So it might be context. So, for instance, if you have a stratified society where you've got a hierarchy and you really depend on the boss man to advance, then yeah, you'll start. Then worshiping is advantageous, and sucking up to the guy in front of you is a good strategy. And as we're more egalitarian, maybe that impulse would disappear.
Yeah, that's why I think societies where there are more inequalities, like between high class and low class, like.
And religions, of course, have long, taken advantage of people's misery in their servitude, in promising them something that they'll never have to pay later on, that will justify all the hell that they're going through. Even so, the more hell you go through, the more reward you'll get.
Yeah, and the religions we're most familiar with in the West tend to build hierarchies, and that's.
I think most people who are happy with their lives, like without religion, never turn into religion, and some people who are in general not happy with what they can get without it.
Yes, Dr. Brett wanted to add something.
Yeah, it was just on the I would say that we have the capacity. So, and as you say, culture is always a sort of modifying effect on the capacities we have. So we might have societies where that impulse is really, the environment is conducive for it, and other societies where it's not. But the capacity is definitely there. And whether you call it an impulse or not,
Also along those lines, I'd recommend the work of Gregory Paul, doing all this analysis of societal and economic differences and how they feed into religiosity. And he finds things like, if you live in a stable, secure society like Denmark or Scandinavia, where the state is pretty good at providing a uniform standard of living, the need for religion starts to disappear. And it's exactly what you're saying. Is if you're not in dire, desperate fear of your future, religion is less of a priority.
Can I thank you very much? I'm going to move on to the next caller, who is Carter. I hope Carter is with us. You might have to unmute your microphone, Carter. We're not hearing you.
Do you very much want to turn on the video? Because not that it matters a whole lot.
Are we frozen?
Yeah, we're frozen.
Okay.
You're frozen on blog. Just refresh on blog. We're not frozen on Skype.
All right. No.
Carter, we're struggling to hear you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove you, and I'll come back to you after we take the next call. The next call is going to be an interesting one. It's from someone called Oliver. Oliver has phoned in on 2 previous occasions to the Magic Sandwich Show. The first time he claimed that without religion, atheists would succumb to their desires to rape and murder.
Didn't we already answer that question?
Oh no, it gets better.
Oh, okay.
He's promising to come up with something even better. And when Don Exodus was on that program, and when Don Exodus said to him, well, do you have a desire to murder and rape? He said, yes, and the only thing that stops me is religion, which speaks volumes about his morality. He then got a little bit abusive and called Don Exodus a sellout prick because he'd given up his faith. The following show, he subsequently made a video on YouTube about that program, and included in that, I think he said something along the lines that I had a posh, twatish voice, which meant that I was elitist.
Well, at least he got one thing right.
Yeah.
So, as Aaron says, he's got something to say. On that show, he then sought to persuade us that the Kalam cosmological argument could actually prove his God. And when asked, well, how do you go from the conclusion of Kalam to actual evidence of your particular God, his answer was that we had to tap into the telepathic Jesus signals or something.
Video is frozen.
Oh,
on
okay.
Sandwich, so
Anyway, it's with a certain degree of trepidation and also a certain hope in entertainment value that yet again we're going to have Warrior Christian 1994 on the show. So, Aaron?
I must say that the service here is impeccable.
There's a problem with this call.
Just that call.
God is... It's just...
It's a message from God. Oh no, I think we've got Warrior Christian 1994. Hello, sir.